It's a reality redemption podcast. Why can't I say that after 3 years? It
I
just
don't
doesn't
know.
roll off the tongue
Reality
sometimes.
redemption.
Yeah, so we've been doing this for 3 years now, okay? And we've gotten some positive feedback, but this week we finally got some negative feedback.
Okay, let's
Okay,
hear.
I think you're gonna know who this is.
Okay.
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 And he even sends a video message. Okay,
Oh,
so I'm gonna play
okay.
that.
Well, look who came crawling back if it ain't the Reality Redemption Podcast. You know, I just seen on Fox News that you just celebrated 3 years. 3 years of podcast and bliss. Disseminating all kinds of misinformation. Well, who do you think you are, huh? Joe Rogan? I don't think so. Now, that's a real podcast. My man Joe will do a 3-hour podcast on DMT. And by that, I mean he'll talk for 3 hours about DMT while he's on DMT. For 3 hours. I got a short commute, so it's taken me about 2 years to listen to that particular episode. But you catch my drift. I looked up your little podcast on Apple Tunes to see if it was any good. And one of the reviews said it was the worst podcast they ever heard. Of course, I was the one who wrote the review. But I think it's just time to pack it in and trade a podcasting in for something a little more suited to your talents, like a CB radio or maybe a walkie-talkie with some dead batteries. Or at least maybe you could get a law degree and help out your spray tan in chief, because he's in court fighting for his life with these indictments. And you seen that bathroom full of classified documents? I think we can all agree that that was a secure bathroom. I had one of them little turny locks on it. That's secure if I ever seen it. Now, I looked that bathroom up on Zillow. That'll cost you 20 grand, but I'm sure a judge will give Trump 10 to 15 at least. And would it kill you to knock it off with all this gay pride stuff? I can't turn around without getting hit in the face with a damn rainbow. Stop making me question my sexuality, because it's making me want to ride a bike without a seat on it, but I digest. It's against my better judgment to even do this today. But I'm raising my emotional support beer to you. Reality Redemption Podcast. 3 years. I wish I could say I was proud. But here's to you. Now get off my prop. This is just allergies. Tony, get the ivermectin.
Oh my god.
Oh, so we love the haters. So thank you, Brett Terhune, for that. Okay, so after that scathing review,
I'm raising my emotional support beer.
yeah, to Brett Terhune. he was a little sad this week, and you could justifiably so, because it was a historic week. And so we got Jim, our friend Jim Foley, back on with us.
Yay!
Thank you.
Yeah,
We're excited.
and being a Navy guy, how come you're not a Trump supporter?
all Navy guys, all military guys must be Trump supporters,
Well,
right?
that's the way that
Yeah.
it seems.
It does. There is that stereotype, and it's been there for a long time that people that join the military, they must be conservative, they must be Republicans, and in their eyes, patriots. And that demographic has changed over my 35 years, but it's especially changed now since the era of Trump and the young generation today, the Gen Z people. This is probably going to be a turning point in the military where we're going to have less of a Republican bias than probably any time since World War I.
Yeah.
This is really going to impact that image of we're the, pro-military patriotic people. They've been dropping the ball on that, on veterans issues, on funding veterans care. Those young people are listening. The people that are joining today and in uniform today, they're paying attention to this.
I wish the older people would listen especially about the benefits and whatnot that they want to
That's
cut.
really at stake. It is.
Yeah.
There's a risk that, anybody that went into the military thinking this is written in stone and I've got these retirement benefits, or I'm a civil servant like I am today, that you're guaranteed this federal employee retirement benefits plan. what happens if you get a new president in and he decides that's over, that's done? He breaks that contract with America, with civil service, and your pension's gone. I mean, Sonia and I, my wife, have collectively at the end of when we retire, we'd have 80 years of naval service in active duty and retired, and then into civil service. And that risk is terrifying to me, that somebody like him that voices such a loathing for civil servants. He's already said on this campaign trail that he promises to clean house at the Justice Department, fire all the career civil servants. So he's not just looking at his appointments, he's looking at turning over loyalists in every single part, every department.
Well, and it's not just him, it's Congress, because with the debt ceiling, part of the debt ceiling was they wanted to cut veterans' benefits from the Republicans. The Republicans wanted to cut veterans' benefits.
That's right. Loud and clear, in writing. It wasn't just an accusation. That was in the proposal that was offered by the Republicans, among many other things. Cutting back the benefits to the
Social Security and Medicare.
Well, they took that one off the table when they blew
they got
it in
they got
Congress.
the backlash. But I mean, they
During the
originally
presidential address, when he kind of hooked them and made them, on the spot for basically saying they get rid of Social Security and Medicare. So they backed out of that. But they went after VA, they went after the drug benefits plan, the stuff with the insulin, $15. They wanted to cut all of that. And cut the Medicaid, where money that they give to the states. So it was a bold proposal.
But they didn't really want to roll back the tax cuts to the rich.
No, they just released their new budget proposal, and it has heavy permanent tax cuts. They plan on extending the 10-year Trump tax plan to where the super wealthy, now the middle class and lower, their taxes will expire after next year. But all the rich people, they'll keep getting those same benefits that they were bequeathed.
I mean, I've realized that that's basically what it comes down. It's almost like they have sold their soul to the devil, so they just have to do whatever it takes to get those.
I'm afraid it's gone that far.
I mean, that's what it seems like to me.
There's no turning back.
Like if you watch movies, I forget the name of that one movie where he sold his soul to the devil, but it just reminds me of that.
Well, look at the insurrection review board that they put together this week, that Gates and Green, and they sat on a panel in Congress and held a subcommittee meeting to look into whether or not the January 6th insurrectionists have been mistreated. I mean, that's what they're doing the week that the leader of their party has been indicted on espionage.
Do you think
that's shocking to me?
Do you think that maybe they're doing that because they're scared because they'd be next on the chopping block?
Oh, they've definitely. Those guys are fighting for their life.
Yeah.
They met with Trump and were part of the planning of those insurrection maneuvers. If he goes down, they're all going.
That's why they're fighting so hard.
Yeah. And that's why he's fighting so hard.
Yeah.
The only chance he has of getting out of any of this is to become the president. Notice I didn't say win the presidency. It's to seize power. And if he can do that, he's going to enact what he's planned all along. He says it out loud now.
Well, even his opponents in the Republican primaries have come out and said, we'll pardon him if we get elected. Now, the thing about that is, well, if you said that you're pardoning him, you think he's guilty. If you say you're going to pardon him, you think he's guilty. Yeah. So how is it a weaponized Justice Department if he's guilty of these crimes? And we'll get into this a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, I agree. They're pretty much airing it out in a sense by admitting that. Or I think only one or two of the candidates at this time have made that pledge. Others are a little apprehensive, and I think they're waiting for it to all just implode on them. They don't have to answer that because the real delicate issue is Trump's followers. That's the Republican base. That's what's steering the party right now. So if you attack Trump, if you go on the offensive too much, you're gonna alienate them. And they have really long memories for some reason. They really hold grudges.
Well, not really, because we talked about weaponizing the Justice Department, and when Trump was on the campaign trail, his campaigns were all about lock her up, lock her up. So he would be
Michael Flynn started
weaponized.
that.
He would weaponize his Justice Department to go after political candidates.
He's already
right?
said that this week, that he will be locking up the Biden family.
So how is that different?
Oh, I mean, the difference is they're broadcasting like they always do their hypocrisy. I mean, they're the ones that are making these claims of a corrupt Justice Department, and they can't find any evidence, but they swear if they get power, they're going to make a corrupt Justice Department. So it's their way of leading into it. And Trump has taught the Republican Party how to do that effectively, because now they do it on everything. They complain about something, and a week later it shows up in the news that they were doing that. That's rinse and repeat. I mean, that's been a theme. So I think that's what this is, you know, you complain and we're going to get Hillary. And I've even heard the excuse made that, well, you guys are going after Trump just like we went after Hillary. Okay, so while you were doing it, you knew it was a sham, and now you think that this is just, you know, tit for tat. It's not. This guy's in real trouble with the Justice Department. He doesn't just have some pansy Trey Gowdy up there making noise or something. This is real.
Yeah. I mean,
you know, the stupid committee meetings they held or whatever. This is the Justice Department doing this.
Yeah. So I would imagine being in the military, you're privy to some security clearance, right?
I've held a security clearance for the bulk of my 35 years.
Okay. So you would know better how serious these charges are.
Extraordinarily serious. Not only are those charges, those other people that are in the media now, the young Air Force reservist sergeant that got caught putting things on the internet, taking things home. I mean, this guy's facing like 25 years in prison for what he did. The material he had was not of the national security interest that the things Trump had. Trump had the highest, most scary kind of intelligence there is. Most people outside of maybe a dozen people on Earth would ever even hold the intelligence he has. So while I may have handled things that do with avionics and frequencies of radios and codes and stuff and electronics that I work in, I don't ever see anything that goes towards national security and nuclear arms, you know, posture. And the stuff he had is could change the direction of politics on Earth. You know, that's some really dangerous, powerful stuff.
Right.
And I believe it's already been compromised. I believe he's given it to the Saudis and to Putin in Russia.
Right. So he had like military plans. He had locations of where nuclear weapons were. And there's pictures of boxes in unsecured locations throughout Mar-a-Lago. There's pictures. He's on tape saying that he had the authority to declassify it while he was president, but now he doesn't have the opportunity to declassify it on tape. But this is still somehow
two confessions in one. He recognizes he's not the president. That's kind of new. And also he admits that he did not declassify that when he did have that authority, and it's too late. So in the legal business, that's a slam dunk. He's holding a smoking gun with a admission taped to it. I mean, he really is. I've never heard of a legal case ever, and I think I posted something like this the other day on my little politics rant, that I've even on Law and Order, that is so ridiculously teed up for the Justice Department to just put him in prison, for there to be a jury deliberation of about 20 minutes, because I've never seen evidence this destructive where the defendant is going, yeah, I did it, see? Yeah. I mean, it's weird. He's really in a lot of trouble.
Right.
Do you think that he'll actually go to prison, though?
That's the tough one. You know,
Yeah.
What do you do with the guy? He's going to get convicted. I really do
sure
think
that
so.
he will,
but what
but-
do you do with the ex-president?
Will that be before Election Day 2024?
Yes, I believe so.
You think they'll have the case
Really? That quick?
before?
The case. I mean,
Oh.
which one? Pick a straw. I mean, right now, Georgia is fast tracking. We found out that she's further along. Fannie Willis is much further along than people thought.
Mm-hmm.
And she threw a kind of a flag, an indicator that she's on track to indict in August.
Yeah. She cleared all court cases for
I mean,
the first 2 weeks of
we
August.
got a year and 2 or 3 months before the election. There's a lot of stuff that can happen.
And I got another question. So if he gets convicted in Georgia too, he can't be pardoned from that, right? Because that's a state.
Correct. Can't be pardoned
can
by
only
the
get-
president of the United States. Correct.
Right.
He can be pardoned by a governor.
By a
or
governor.
something.
But he can only be pardoned by who the president is, like in the federal case, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And that's something that we should have a discussion in Congress and in the White House today. How much worth does the pardon power give us? I mean, why are presidents really needing to let these people go? It was one thing when you saw some feel-good story where a dude had done 25 years in prison, turned his whole life around. He was guilty of it. You're not pardoning people because the justice system failed. You're pardoning people because they changed their lives. Well, just working for Trump and pulling one of his schemes, getting caught, and not even really before you go to prison, they already pardoned you. Like Steve Bannon, like
Roger
Flynn,
Stone.
Roger Stone. He's pardoned all those guys.
Okay.
So like preemptive pardons. So we need to get rid of that. I mean, Joe Biden doesn't need to be pardoning anybody. Who does he need to pardon? Hunter? Who cares? That is not a priority. If you read the Federalist Papers on this subject too, there was a lot of dissension about the presidential pardon. And Hamilton, I think, was the one that really brought it up and hammered it home. It's like, man, this makes a king. I mean, this guy you could issue people the orders to commit crimes, and then you can pardon them with just a snap of your fingers. And it's just gone. It's over. It's not up for review. There isn't a judge that's going to correct what that president did wrong. You're pardoned.
Right, and there was allegations that Giuliani was selling these pardons for $2 million apiece.
Yeah.
Why doesn't that
Like
surprise me?
splitting the money with Trump, I think.
It's
they
like
got
a
$1 million
carnival
or
show.
something.
The only thing missing is the stuffed animals and the smell of cotton candy in the air. Every time you see the Republicans, they've always got something. It's the most despicable, low down, selling pardons. That's why we need to get rid of it. It doesn't do anything but promote corruption. Leaves that just as a vein wide open for corruption.
Right, but Biden's the corrupt one.
Well, let's take it away from him. I've got an idea.
Yeah.
Let's offer to the GOP that starting tomorrow, we'll get rid of the presidential pardon for all time. So now Biden can't pardon anybody.
All right.
They should be doing backflips.
Now,
right?
isn't
Right?
it amazing that Biden can be so old and incompetent and sleepy, but he's this evil mastermind who can corrupt the entire justice system?
Yeah. It's like Hillary being a super killer ninja with those thick ankles. I mean, it just doesn't really add up. I just don't get their logic. And I think I feel like I'm being talked to like a kindergartner when I hear those type of allegations. Like, oh, he's just evil and he's doing this. And why isn't he doing better? I mean, well off, like Trump. Why doesn't he have like all these mega bucks? And why isn't he being seen with all these Eastern European hookers and stuff? Why doesn't he have that life? If he's such, the same with the Clintons. Why aren't they flouting their big, powerful yacht? And, they're doing all these international dubious deals and stuff, billions of dollars for Uranium One or whatever. Where is it? Where's the wealth? Why don't they show it off? Why don't they have a golden toilet? They deserve it.
Who knows?
But it's a weird conundrum that you do see that. I think anymore they're shameless about it. They've adopted that we're this way. We're just gonna say something, and then when my guy does it, we're like it's so weird, but they do it.
Well, I think
You can't guilt them or shame them into anything anymore.
I always hate to punch down on his supporters, but I think it's because his supporters just believe it. Whatever it is, they just believe
Well, they
it.
adopt stupid too. I've had several people, even in writing, when they're answering my posts, my blogs about politics, and they get some information they probably weren't prepared for. They didn't know. If you don't watch the news, how would you know, right? So I inform them of something, and it stops them in their tracks. They're like, oh shit, what do I say about this? And then they start typing dumb. I mean, they start typing with a Southern accent. I have several people that do that to me. Well, I don't know about all that. I mean, why are you typing like that? They literally put all the y'alls in there. It's like, he's been writing me like pages, paragraphs, having this argument. But as soon as I got this guy on the ropes and he can't figure it a way out, he just says something ignorant. And then he's gone, But I have 2 or 3 people that do that to me on a regular basis. They literally dumb down an accent in writing. So why do they do it? They're adopting. It's a defensive mechanism.
And they don't speak like that
No.
with an accent?
No, not at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
But they type like that suddenly. You know, it's weird. It's something that people do automatically, subconsciously. It's easy.
They're making fun of like their
go to
fellow
any Maggie
supporters,
rally.
though, like sitting there saying that Southern people are dumb. I mean, they're making fun of some of their.
Do you remember when Hillary called them deplorables?
Yeah.
You know, the guy sits next to me at work. Like me, has been a career Navy guy his whole life, works in engineering. He actually got like a stencil, a name badge that said deplorables on it.
Yeah, I've
And-
seen
and,
them with
you know,
the T-shirts and everything.
Yeah, I just thought, who
remember
embraces that? When somebody insults you and tells you that you're just beneath, respect. I mean, you're just a horrible person, and you start wearing that as a badge of pride. How do you guilt somebody like? How do you shame somebody like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm well versed. Before I try to engage somebody on Facebook, especially, I want to make sure that I know my shit.
Sure, who wants to look stupid?
Yeah. Like there was a local politician here who posted something about the airport, and he naturally takes a dig at California, the highest taxes in the country. I'm like, let me see if that's actually true. So I found the effective tax rate of of each state, and no, California is just outside the top 10, but they're not in the top 10, so they're not that. And I just posted that on his thing. I was like, I'm just going to leave this here.
Did he even reply?
No, he did not reply, because how can you argue that? I just read you the facts right there. It's right there.
Yeah.
And by you saying that you're just trying to rile up the base here, saying, California's
because
awful.
people here are always like, "Don't California my Arizona," So
they're not from here. That bothers me a lot. I've had people do that to me because I have California plates on my vehicles, and somebody's walking down the street. Oh boy, more Californians are moving in here. I'm from here. I was born and raised. I was brought up in that house. And you're from Arkansas or Missouri or something. And you moved here in your retirement. Now you're talking trash to me. I'm a Kingmanite.
It's
that
always
really
the
bothers
people
me.
who aren't even from Arizona. Like, I'm an Arizona native. I'm not. I was born and raised in Phoenix, but like them coming in from other states and then them talking shit about California, and I'm like, wait a second, you're not even from here.
Right.
Like, what? Why do you get to move here, and what you say
You're the
now
last
goes?
pioneer, right?
Yeah.
When the newspaper published the Kingman Daily Miner, which I was a paper boy of, and one weekend I was here, they opened this new signage downtown of Route 66, welcome to Kingman, and tourist center. And I grew up on Route 66. My grandparents owned a motel, and a restaurant. That's where I grew up, so I know the legacy of Kingman and this road. And these people come here and just use it as like a carnival or something, and like it's not your town. And in the newspaper that day where they were publishing that article, one of the local residents had written in about those darn Californians coming here and they drive bad, their kids are rude. And I mean, he really trash talked. He itemized how stereotyped Californians are. And I was here at the time when I read that. I really was irritated by it. And I wrote to the Miner, and they published it. I still have it. I cut it out. And I just lambasted them. I said, why do you guys put on the front page this welcome to Kingman, Route 66? And then you turn to the opinion, and it's a local guy saying, get out of here, you bums.
Right? It's
I said, what's wrong with the Miner? I can understand that this guy's a jerk and he hates Californians or whatever, but why would you print that? Why would you publish that? This whole town survives
It's not
on
very
tourism.
welcoming.
No,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for I-40 and Route 66 tourism, this town would dry up and go away. So why would you move here from somewhere else because you're not from here and then just insist everybody stay out? That's the attitude where the city council, the Kingman Miner, they should not promote that.
Right.
Don't come to Kingman should not be your message as a town. And I think it's really become that.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the good old boys in Kingman who own businesses here, and they don't want other businesses to come here to provide competition. I
Jeez,
think.
I mean, what a big picture, I guess. I'm gonna keep big stores out by crushing Kingman's economy. What a defeatist type of an approach to do anything. I suppose it could be an element, but it just seems so against capitalism, against
all the things they're supposed to stand for.
That you should naturally believe, I guess.
Right.
So
yeah, it's crazy. So getting back to Trump, do you know, can he get elected president if he's convicted?
yes. There's no law, there's no element to the Constitution that forbids a convicted felon or even a person currently serving in jail from winning the presidency. Now, winning is a different thing.
So could
he hasn't won yet.
So could he effectively be the president from prison?
He could for a day, and then he would pardon himself, and we would go forward from there. And I mean, there would be a challenge to that, but he would walk out of prison the day he was inaugurated, at least, January 20th or whenever the day felt that year. He would pardon himself that day. I'm certain of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the danger in this, is he will abuse, distort the Constitution. Then he's going to shred it and throw it in a fire. He's done with that. Democracy it's definitely his enemy, and the whole Republican Party has adopted that. I mean, they're not even talking sweet to people anymore. They're not looking for voters. They're not talking to centrists or independents. They are hardcore MAGA.
They don't want democracy.
Yeah, so
at all.
You're not running for an election. You're not campaigning if you don't need anybody to vote for you. They've lost the last 4 or 5 elections in a row dramatically. I mean, Trump did become president because he won the Electoral College in 2016, but he lost the popular vote.
Right.
And then he lost it even by more the next time against Biden. So he hasn't won the popular vote yet. He's going south with his popularity. He hasn't gained any supporters since the insurrection. Nobody signed up for Trump. So they don't really plan on winning this election.
Yeah.
Why be coy?
The last time a Republican won the popular vote as well as the Electoral College, I think it was George H.W.
Correct. In his second election, he lost the first popular vote by 300,000 votes to Al Gore. But he did win the popular and electoral in his re-election.
Oh, so it was Baby Bush that did.
Correct. W.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was the last one.
I thought it was his dad that was the last time. I didn't realize it was him.
W also had that experience.
Okay. Okay.
In his first election, he lost, the big hanging chads and all that. He lost the popular vote. And then the next election, W actually won the popular and electoral college. So that was the last time.
Probably because of 9/11.
Oh, yeah. That was a big boost to him. And I mean, he had a 97% approval rating after 9/11. I mean, not deserved, but Americans were scared. They were terrified.
Yeah.
Yep, I would so go for George Jr. over Trump.
Oh, geez, yeah. And I don't want to use the word hate. I don't want to dilute that because I reserve that for Trump. I disliked very much W. He was the governor when I lived in Texas and was stationed there in Corpus Christi, and I met him on one occasion at a military ceremony. He wasn't up for the job. He wasn't competent enough to be the president, and he was in way over his head, and then that happened, and he blew it. I mean, but he was at least a patriotic man. He cared about those veterans and the people that got hurt on his watch, and he ordered them to war. It bothered him. It ate at his soul. So he was a decent man, at least. Donald Trump, he doesn't care whatsoever.
No decency.
I mean, he would use a baby as a club. He is really, there's nothing decent about that man.
Right, and I don't think he's running for president because he wants to
running
be back.
Dictator. Yeah.
Well, there's that, but I think it's more like he just wants the money. He's
scamming his
big
supporters. I mean, because every
money's
time
in place.
something comes up.
I think he has a lot more money than people really know, and that's because he's been hauling it offshore for a very long time.
He's a hoarder.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he doesn't even pay people. I mean, he just stiffed everybody at that restaurant in Florida the other day. He walked in, hey, food's on me. And 10 minutes later, he booked. He didn't buy anything for anybody. So he's that way. And he's been laundering money for Russia for a long time. You know, they're buying his hotels and golf courses, and he doesn't have to pay these loans back. And he's laundering money for the mob, for the Russian mob. All that's opium, child trafficking, prostitution, all the money that's ill-gotten gain from like Eastern Europe is being laundered in the United States through real estate purchases, and Donald Trump is the kingpin of it.
Wow.
And you know, I'm going to say this is my allegation, allegedly. I am sure he made a lot of money with some of the deals he made as president.
$2 billion is how much money he profited, not counting any what Kushner got and all that stuff. I just saw something released by, it was either New York Times or Washington Post, just within the last week or two. It was $2 billion, I believe.
So his personal wealth went up $2 billion.
Correct. But hey, don't worry though. He did return his presidential salary, which was like $450,000 a year. So
He actually returned it?
all except for the last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he made a promise. It was one of the ones he almost kept. He made it through year 3. But that last year, he no longer donated his presidential salary. But he used to make a big ceremony of it, and he had, you know, a big hokey check and all that stuff. And he'd hand it to one of the departments of whatever, energy, and there would be an initiative to do something with the presidential salary. He was I mean, you know him, he's just a showman. It's always a grift. And
I can't believe he actually donated.
I know,
though.
yeah, for 3 years.
I'm
That's
thinking,
surprising.
Like, maybe after the cameras were turned away, he's like, all right, give me that back now.
Yeah, well, at least on his taxes and everything else. But on the last year, he did not. He just silently didn't do that anymore. Which, I mean, $450,000 for a man that's got billions of dollars.
For a billionaire, it's nothing.
Yeah, why would you bother? I mean, that's...
Yeah. And again, going back to how, you know, the whole system's rigged, it's all a witch hunt and stuff like that. The judge was really lenient on him as far as she could have taken away his passport. She could have grounded his plane.
But really, is Donald Trump going to be forbid from international travel? I think he could walk out on a tarmac and get on a plane and fly out of this country. And what are we going to do about it? I mean, we're not going to shoot him down.
Especially he has his own plane.
You land somewhere, nobody's going to ask you for your passport. You're the former president of the United States with a Secret Service agent with you. I mean, so just to minus the drama, I think. Same with the mugshot. That was a big deal. A lot of the people on the left were like, well, you know, anybody else would get a mugshot. Yeah, but the whole world doesn't know what you look like. You don't have to show that picture. Hey, there's a fugitive, and this is what he looks like. Yeah, he's this orange guy with this weird wig and fake teeth, and everybody knows what Donald Trump looks like. You know, so you know, don't get we as the left, we as Democrats, don't need to get petty. You know, getting down into his playground where you're throwing mud, you're being nasty. You can't compete on his level. I mean, let him have that stuff, and that's why the Justice Department, they don't answer any of his you know, cat calls, and he starts these Twitter wars, and that's why President Biden doesn't get engaged in anything to do with this investigation. You know, this is grown-up time, and Donald Trump is very, very poorly positioned for anything in the realm of being a grown-up, as we've all witnessed. You know, he talks like an angry 8th grader.
Yeah.
He does.
Like a bully on a field, on a...
But he does have a following. We need to take it serious. There's a lot of stochastic terrorism where he's making these not so veiled, you know, suggestions that people rise up and take things into their own hands. And if you're going to fight for America, he uses these incendiary language to promote that kind of violence, and he does it every day. He does it in writing, and
well, I mean, you have Carrie Lake saying what she said.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the governor of Arizona?
Yeah.
Isn't she still saying that she's
in
the
her
governor?
In her mind, yeah.
What a loon.
But she made a statement like that, promoting that you're going to have to go through all of us, and we're with the NRA, and you're associating it to gun violence. And
they want the violence.
They do. Well, at least the effect of the intimidation. I mean, this is the same play that they seized power in the 30s in Nazi Germany. It was through brown shirts intimidating just local people. If you're in the bar and you're talking bad about Hitler, a couple of guys drag you outside and beat your head in, and I guess you won't be talking like that tomorrow. So that's really the tactic that is being applied by the MAGA militia here, is they're trying to like, how about we get our guns and come on over there? That's what that's all about, is that intimidation is it's a stepping stone for fascism is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, but you are going to have some incite some lunatic to do something.
Oh, they're counting on it. The lone wolf is they know they can't muster any real strength from a little militia, some guys out in, Kingman, Arizona that are running around in camouflage and stuff. I mean, be serious. I mean, I was in the military. What you're doing out there in your garage is not the same thing as what we do in the military. So you're ill prepared to actually foment a big response, and what they're counting on is that lone wolf terrorist, the guy that's going to shoot up a place and make people scared to go out anymore. You won't go to church, you won't go to the grocery store, you alter your life, you don't take your kids with you places anymore just in case. So that's what terrorism is to cause you, the common citizen, to interrupt your life and not feel secure in your surroundings. And then along comes the strong man. He can fix that. He alone, in the words of Donald Trump, I alone can fix this. Mm-hmm. That's a classic tactical method of screwing everything up, have these big riots in BLM, have the cops go in there and beat the shit out of them, tear gas them, really cause a lot of havoc, and then you fix it. So he's been trying to do that for a long time. Unfortunately, he's such a weak person, he doesn't have any fortitude, he's not a man's man. And that's why the generals and the admirals and everybody take him with a grain of salt and tell him, no, sir, you're not going to do that. The Constitution says you can't shoot protesters. Sir. As he apparently likes to be called by everybody. Sir, yes, sir. I love those stories.
Yeah. And so when do you think he's going to get indicted on the January 6th stuff?
I think sooner than we believe. That grand jury is, in session in D.C., and that this is a follow-on to the previous stuff. But I think really what they were waiting on was that final element of evidence, working with the Vice President, Pence. He has testified in front of that grand jury, and they've had some other people in there. So I think you're going to see indictments. You're going to see all of the lieutenants. That means Flynn and Giuliani and everybody that was involved and was over at that hotel, basically as like the generals overseeing the insurrection. Since they've already got the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, who were the guys that were commanding on site. And they had devices in their ears, microphones. They were up live with the folks in that hotel. And then those people were communicating directly with Donald Trump. So that whole network is going to be exposed. Basically what January 6th committee was investigating and tying together for us. And those people are in a lot of trouble. There's a lot of witnesses that have come out. There's a lot of stuff we haven't been revealed yet.
I'm surprised that some of the people who have been arrested haven't tried to, give more information now that they've been
some
busted.
Immunity deals have been made.
Okay.
Yeah. And so those people are talking freely now. You can't hold nothing back. I mean, they're talking really that Mark Meadows may have made some limited immunity deals where he's still going to get in trouble for some of it. But it sounds like he's spilling his guts. And nobody knows more about what Donald Trump did than Mark Meadows. Okay. He was in the room for
He
every
was in
minute.
the room with
Yeah,
them.
he was the chief of staff, and every meeting was funneled through him, every point of contact. He's the point man in the White House. He knows where all the bodies are buried. And he's pretty much turned state's evidence from what I've seen. Seen reported. So with that
grab
evidence,
the popcorn.
Oh, exactly. And this is going to be a huge...
Now, wouldn't that be what could deter him from becoming president if he was found guilty of insurrection? Because you cannot run for president
according to the 14th Amendment to Article 3. That could very likely happen. I'm not so sure that we would see a conviction on the January 6th insurrection charges before the election. They've got to also take into account how do they stagger all these court appearances and everything that he's got to, they've got to coordinate. I watched something the other evening on Rachel Maddow where she was, putting a tack and everything. What date is this hearing and which one's going to take precedence over the other and so on. So they've got to work together. Here's a guy that's under like 4 or 5 different jurisdictions of indictment and criminal activity. He's in more trouble than I think anybody I've ever seen.
More than I've heard
this
of.
This is the greatest crime ever committed since the Civil War.
Well, and that goes all back to when he was getting elected and the Russiagate thing, and the whole thing about Russia. The Russiagate thing is, for a guy that wasn't guilty, he sure seemed like he was guilty by refusing to testify, having his aides refuse to testify.
Well, then your campaign manager went to prison for that. I mean, he gave internal polling data. This is Paul Manafort. He gave internal polling data to Russian agents. And they used that data to manipulate stuff on Facebook and Twitter where certain regions and demographics were pumped in tons of propaganda right before the presidential election. And they've shown through that investigation all those years ago with Robert Mueller that did affect people. That swang the polls in those areas where the Russians were pumping in propaganda based on the intel they got from the Trump campaign. And Paul Manafort, his campaign manager, went to prison for it. So this idea that he wasn't tied to Russia, well, what's your boy doing behind bars? Same with the rest of them. I mean, Michael Flynn was calling the ambassador of Russia before they were even in the White House and making deals, and it was on tape.
Yeah, so he wasn't exonerated.
Not at all.
Justice
pardoned.
Yeah, the Justice Department chose not to go after him.
Well, they tried to drop the charges on him, really at the initial thing, and Trump's like, no, I'll just save it to the end. I'll just make this go away. And that's what they did. They milked it out. They made it seem like he was a cooperating witness and all that, and he knew Trump had his back. And here he is, he was there at the insurrection. I mean, he was part of the planning. He was in the Oval Office when the lawyers had to bust in and say, what are you clowns doing here? Giuliani and Flynn and who's the lady? The
MTG?
No, the crazy lawyer lady with the election machines. What's her name? I can't remember her name right now.
Yeah, I know.
But the 3 of them were in the Oval Office. I mean, that came out in the investigation when the Justice Department guys during the January 6th committee hearings, they said, yeah, I got a phone call and I was out in the Washington Mall and I busted into the Oval Office and said, what are you doing here? I mean, those people came in, found a way to get in there unannounced to any of the staff in the White House. That's unheard of. And then plotted with the president to have an insurrection. Yeah. It's what they did. I mean, they've got witnesses that have testified to this. So that's all the stuff that we know from watching the public hearings from the January 6th committee. And there's a lot of stuff we don't know, I think.
Was that lady Sidney Powell?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
It was Sidney
I was
Powell.
like, it was going to bother me until I got it.
The Kraken lady. You know what I mean. So, thank you. But those 3 actually somehow had access to President Trump on, December 19th? I mean, he'd already lost the election and he was throwing Hail Marys in every direction, with the Electoral College fake electors, with the talking Pence into doing this, with the actual assault with people showing up and attacking the Capitol. He had 4 or 5 different methods going on to overthrow the election. And he'd been planning it for a while. That didn't just happen.
Yeah, you call a state and go, hey, can you find me this many votes?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's no evidence. I've never seen a trial with evidence like that. Where you actually have taped admissions of people just saying, yeah, do this crime for me. And now with his lawyers, Conkle is the lawyer that had to turn over all of his notes because the client lawyer privilege thing, as the appellate court saw it, no, you were asking him to commit crimes for you. You can't have your lawyer commit crimes. So they've got all that guy's personal notes, all of his personal recordings that Trump just asked me to move these boxes for him and take stuff out of them.
Yeah, behind his lawyer's back.
Good Lord. I mean, I've never seen a evidence trail as damning as this.
But it's all a weaponized Justice Department.
He's not a very
It's like
good
a witch
criminal.
hunt.
You
He's
know?
not.
Like,
He's really a clawed at
shitty.
it. Yeah. And, and I think his falling here, why he doesn't make as good of a criminal as he thinks, is because he thinks he's so smart. He
Yeah.
tells you that all the
He's
time, how
got, like,
brilliant he is.
The delusions of grandeur.
Yeah.
Like, he just thinks he's...
I'll never get caught. Mwah!
Right.
Yeah. It's almost like watching a caricature.
Yeah.
He's really like,
And he
like
looks
an
like
evil,
one, too.
Yeah, with the orange painted face and the clown tie, and he really does look like some sort of super villain, evil, diabolical guy that thinks he's a genius.
Well, I can't figure out if he's smart or not.
He is in some regards. But it's an evil genius kind of thing. It only takes him in a direction of his perversions. Beautiful women, money, prestige. He's such a prisoner to those vices. All of his intelligence is used to that.
I don't think that he's a genius. Like, I don't think he's super smart, but I think he is a master manipulator.
He's maniacal.
I think he has got manipulation down to a science. Like,
his own children,
he's so good at
his
it.
wives through the years, everybody. He does. I've never seen anybody more effective at it.
I know.
To go on stage and be an absolute asshole to even your fellow Republicans. Remember the last election? The first debate, there were 16 people on stage, and he was calling them names and asking the lady, the moderator, whether or not she was on her period. I mean, anybody else would have done that. That would have been it. But for some reason, Donald Trump has this charm where he brings out the asshole in everybody.
And then he got people like Ted Cruz to turn around and kiss his ass after he totally railed on him. I'm like,
called your
he
wife
is
ugly, said your dad killed President Kennedy. That's fighting stuff, but yeah.
He should have called his book "The Art of the Manipulation."
Yeah.
Like, because he's a master manipulator.
He's good at it. Yeah, that's something we can't take away from Donald Trump. We're going to say one positive thing during this discussion. It's that Donald Trump is better at manipulating people than I think
anyone ever on the planet.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't argue that.
like how are you this?
He's not offering anything other than shit.
The greatest businessman in the world, right? That's what they say. Master negotiator. Everything they say, but
Define
you make $30,000 a year, and he needs your money to help fund his legal battles.
That's right. And you send it. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a cult.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe this guy needs your help with you sending your $30 or whatever, you're in a cult. Yeah, this guy doesn't need your money. He is wealthy. Problem is, he can't get any lawyers. All the money in the world isn't going to save a man that keeps lying to his own lawyers and won't shut up. Can you imagine being that guy's defense attorney and you're like, okay, sir, we have this talk, everything's cool. And 5 minutes later, you see on Twitter this guy says something stupid, really stupid. That's every day for these lawyers, and that's why so many of them quit. So many of them ask for money up front, and then they walk away.
They've got to be like pulling their hair out, like, just shut up.
I mean,
like,
how would you
behind
even
the
explain to
scenes,
your
you know?
family, hey, I'm going to represent Donald Trump? Somebody'd spit in your face at dinner or something.
Yeah.
Well, and that's like when he his first cabinet. When he first got elected, and he had his first cabinet. Not that I agreed with the people, but I was like, well, he is sort of surrounding himself with a strong team. That he's.
I heard that argument too. Oh, his generals are there. You don't have to worry. He won't go off the rails. He's got everybody to hold him in place.
Well, yeah.
How'd that go?
Yeah, but he would say, and I remember everybody here would say that, well, he's surrounded himself with the perfect cabinet. All the best minds are around him. And every time he would fire somebody, well, that guy was a worthless idiot. He doesn't know. Yeah. Well, if you're the master, like The Apprentice, and you only hire the best,
better people.
Then why didn't you pick better people?
Yeah, he had his generals, as he liked to call them, and these are some really experienced guys. Every one of them left the administration. Every one of them has nothing but negative stuff to say about the former president, as far as his attention to detail, his discipline, his honor. Every one of them. And I mean, the Jim Mattis wrote a letter and released it to the press and walked into the Oval Office and slapped it down on his desk because he's like, you're not going to fire me on Twitter. Here's my letter of resignation. I mean, the next day, Republicans were calling Jim Mattis a traitor. I mean, that's how easy it is for him to manipulate people. it's really strange that they could just fall into that fog. I mean, here's a guy that's a decorated war hero that he didn't do anything wrong in the administration, just couldn't take it anymore.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, he's dead to them. Anybody that betrays Trump is just out. That's
it's like,
Yeah, that's how they. Yeah, anytime he talks bad about somebody, they automatically hate
Ruin.
that person.
like Mike
death
Pence.
threats.
I mean, that's what I was just gonna say. Yeah.
Like Mike Pence doesn't have a chance. I don't even know why he's running.
Well,
How
I know,
gullible do you
what
have
a
to be?
moron.
You're not kidding. They were chanting "Hang Mike Pence."
it's like, buddy,
You don't
how
have
do
a
think
following,
you even
dude.
have a shot in hell.
Yeah.
Snowball's chance in hell.
Yeah, you weren't popular to begin with, and you know what? There was the one person that probably in that administration that stood up and really stopped what Trump was trying to do that day.
Right.
So at least he had the, I'll call it courage for lack of a better word, but for him to go forward and continue this path towards politics, your ship has sailed. You should set the record straight and save your legacy by testifying, by going public and telling the American people what Donald Trump asked you to
Write
do.
some books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He asked you to overthrow the government with him. And he
Yeah.
made a promise that you would be his viceroy or whatever. He was gonna, make you royalty in your family, and that's what he has in mind for America. This democracy stuff is not working for him at all.
Well, this is how we'll wrap it up. This all ties back into, I think the Republican Party knows that they're aging out. And the youth of today are more progressive.
That's why democracy can't work for them anymore. You can't. They're not even trying. They're not going to the young people with an olive branch. Let's cut that college relief stuff. Let's cut the Medicaid. Health care for people or minimum wage raising. They are really just signing off on that because they're not doing anything to attract any of those younger voters. They're staying with the old white. Hey, we'll keep those people from moving into your neighborhood is really all the message is anymore. I think the Republicans have run out of ideas and campaign promises.
Well, and that's why they're going to make elections harder to win. Well, if they get if they
Make
get
it hard
power,
to vote.
if they get power again. And I've already heard, that the GOP is kind of just giving up on the next election already, and they just go, well, we're just going to focus on the Senate and Congress.
Well, the down ticket stuff, when you've got somebody like Trump running, you're going to suffer huge losses across the board. I don't think they'll be picking up seats. When the guy at the top of the ticket is losing and people aren't enthusiastic and not turning out, they're not turning out for anybody on that ticket. So they better be a little bit more apprehensive of their approach, because if you think you're going to gain seats in the Senate and the House while you got Donald Trump at the top of your ticket, that's a losing strategy.
And it has been for the last.
And if they ever lose the House and the Senate with sufficient numbers again, there's going to be voting rights changes, and there's going to be things that will stop them from being able to ever do this again. They're very aware of that. That if there's laws made that prevent them from having, banning drop-off boxes and no early voting, no mail-in voting, if we make a federal Voters' Rights Act, all that's done. And they know that's the end of theirs, except for just some violent revolt. But what are you going to do? Just start killing your neighbors? So, that's really their ticket, is to control that mechanism. And they'll do the same thing that other third world countries do, where, oh yeah, everybody voted and 96% of them voted for Putin, right? And that's what our elections would become. They'd be a farce. So,
Yeah. So how confident are you that this is going to go okay?
I'm not. I think that we've got a lot of the mechanisms to protect our voting, but what are you going to do when people are showing up with guns around voting places and intimidating people? They're not going to just say, okay, we'll just vote again tomorrow because they did that in this area and that area. Once that day is over, once that voting stops, those things will be successes in stopping democracy. The people that did that in Phoenix, showing up, watching people drop off their ballots or wearing tactical gear. That is what they're going to do at a local level. And you're going to have all of these Republican-infused state and local governments, taking ballots out, moving that. Oh, these aren't valid ballots. They didn't have the proper date on them. So there's going to be a lot of that effort, and it could definitely influence some of the states and how they fall.
Well, even in Mojave County, the northern part of the county, our Board of Supervisors voted to, up there, that you can only hand count your ballots
Mhm.
there.
And taking it backwards like that only has one intention, and that is to influence the election, to hide the true results. They've given up on this. So all you have to do is listen to the things they're accusing others of. That's what they're doing. It's the easiest way
That's a
to.
great point.
That's like with their groomer stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything they're mad about, that's what they're doing. When they were complaining
Right.
about voter fraud, guess who got caught doing voter fraud? A whole bunch of Republicans. People
Yeah.
down in the villages and people in Arizona, and they were voting for their dead wife and their mother. And none of them were Democrats. Every
No, it
damn
was all
one of them
Trump.
was a Republican, but they were complaining. That was their big thing is, yeah, people are voting. Dead people are voting. That's you guys doing that.
Right.
It was all Republicans.
Well, yeah, and just like Snow said about the groomers, show me evidence that kids are being groomed at a Pride event or by watching a Budweiser commercial or a department store ad. But look at the Catholic Church.
Look at a lot of the religions.
Look at the Duggars.
It's not wholesome.
Yeah.
The Duggars, and they were close friends with the Huckabees.
They were, a couple of them tried running for office. A couple of the Duggars. Right?
Well, yeah, and I don't know if you're familiar with it,
I am.
But yeah, in their church, the stuff that they were doing to children was horrific.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the one boy has gone to prison, right?
Yeah, the oldest.
Yeah, for child molestation and pornography or something like that.
That was basically baby porn.
Yeah, so
God.
they don't really care about that stuff. That's all an act. They don't care if anybody. I mean, they're passing laws all over states that you can marry younger girls.
Mm-hmm.
That's new. I mean, why is that a thing? Why is that? And that really caters to those introverted religions that do that.
Mm-hmm.
You've usually got a couple of men at the top, and they've got this harem of young girls.
Well, like Warren Jeffs.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's his face? David Koresh.
Yep.
They
That's
were
exactly
all
what they
fucking,
were.
like,
Their religion
12-year-olds.
was raping
Yeah.
children. Is what
Yeah.
their religion was. They wrapped it in Jesus, and they played a guitar, and they deflowered young girls in an audience of other girls. That's what Koresh did. So
And Jeffs, too.
but they're celebrated as heroes now on the right. I mean, they
Yeah.
went to Waco and they talked about him like he was some sort of messiah.
On the anniversary.
Yeah. And he's a child rapist.
Yeah.
And, had all those people in there basically held captive, manipulating vulnerable people. And it resulted in a tragedy where all those people died, burned to death. And now he's some sort of I don't know. How'd you
He's
become?
a hero to
Yeah.
these, to some people.
Trump kicked off his campaign in Waco.
Yeah. And on the anniversary date, specifically on April 19th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. But I think that's really the shtick now. That's what is enticing his followers. They want more of that. They're going to go along. They like the mob violence type of feeling of we'll get loud and, that's why they like the rallies.
I think it makes weak people feel strong.
It does.
Because they're all, to me, they're weak. They're weak people. Just emotionally
You have
weak,
fears that
whatever.
aren't even real. It's like
Right,
you believe
yeah.
in the boogeyman or something.
Right.
The darn viruses are going to get you, and they're putting microchips in your injections or something. I mean, you're weak. You're weak-minded. You're too simple to even understand basic science. That's so they do. They flock to being one of those people typing with an accent. Well, I don't know about all that, but I'll tell you one thing.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Or a rainbow in a Target is going to turn you gay.
Man, start having a fit in a department store on video in front of the whole world. I don't think they have any shame anymore. There's nowhere else. There's no more bottom.
No, there really isn't.
Well, hopefully. So, Jim, it was great having you on again.
Thank you, Mike.
And you'll be like a regular here. You'll be our political analyst coming up to the next election.
I know.
I'll be happy to do so.
But it was great. And,
I always learn a lot when you're here.
Great.
Yeah, and you were the best one to talk to because you know about how serious this is. The whole classified document stuff. And my argument is, if that was Hillary, the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
You go up to her compound in, Westchester, New York, wherever she is, and she had those boxes in her house. How would you feel about it?
She'll probably never see daylight again. That's how severe that is. That's that big of a deal. And what really, to put a final cap on that, the difference between Hillary and Trump is when it came time to, hey, give us this stuff, she did. She turned everything over to the FBI that she was instructed to. Now, she didn't turn over her server to the Republicans because she's not stupid, but she did turn over everything the FBI asked for. Donald Trump was asked, and then he was told.
Sometimes.
And then they came to his house when he wasn't there and took it.
And then,
so it's a much different thing.
And then before the indictment came down, they tried to cop a deal with him.
Mm-hmm. And he's been lying too long. That ship has sailed. He's going to be indicted. He has been indicted. He's going to be convicted for espionage. And then we're going to see another indictment for January 6th.
Well, then hopefully Democrats just win the next election so he doesn't get pardoned.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Although, does he do jail time? Does he step foot in jail? Probably.
I
not.
honestly don't think that he
exile
will.
will probably be what we talk about. I think that's going to be the next step, is him going into exile somewhere. So, and I've always thought that.
Well, Saudi Arabia or Russia will take him, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd probably choose Saudi Arabia over Russia.
It's warmer.
Pete would just sell them back to us. Just cut a deal and ship them back.
I think they'd have to make a deal where he goes into hiding. We couldn't have him as a loose cannon doing what he's doing today. You couldn't say, okay, you're convicted of the worst crimes of any American citizen ever in history, of treason, of insurrection, of espionage. We can't just let him go somewhere and run his mouth. With his fuck you
stop?
America story that he does every day, and how these prosecutors are evil leftists. We can't let him continue to do that.
Yeah.
That has to stop.
Well, hey,
He's not going to quit his Truth Social.
No,
Somebody quit it for him.
no. But what we can take solace in, with all those classified documents, there's very little chance he actually read any of them.
It's true. It's true.
Oh.
Even
Yeah.
all of his briefers, the FBI, the CIA, everybody said you couldn't keep his attention for 5 minutes. You'd be telling him the most important thing on earth, and he'd be like, "Oh, look, a butterfly." I mean, he has the attention span of a bass.
That's
He's
probably
brilliant.
why he took so many of them then. Because
No, that's
he
because
didn't know
he's,
what was in them, and he just was like, I'm just going to take them all.
Well, he got briefed on those things, or
Oh, okay.
and we could do a whole nother session on this, because I did some reading on this subject with Andrew McCabe, released a book specifically on this subject. And let's save that for another time, because there's probably about 20 minutes of discussion just on that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So nice seeing you.
Yeah.
Go easy on the motorcycle though.
Yeah. No more of that.
Yeah. No more.
Yeah.
Stay upright. Wheels on the bottom. Got it.
Okay. All right. All right. We'll see you all next time.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Let's get low on batteries.